Rain makes empires honest. Not speeches, not flags, not the little animated arrows generals like to draw before reality gets rude. Just a map, a bill, and the sound of very expensive machines learning old lessons. Epic Fury was supposed to be a strike. Clean, fast, decisive. That was the brochure. Then the calendar got involved. 40 days later, the board looked different. 42 aircraft hit or lost, an estimated $29 billion burned, 13 Americans dead, 381 wounded. And the strangest part? Nobody could agree whether America had won, Iran had survived, or the map had simply eaten both stories and asked for another cigarette. Welcome to World on Edge. Tonight, we are not doing patriotic music. We are doing 10 lessons from Epic Fury. Not from the podium, not from the press room, from the board, because the board does not clap, it just keeps score. Lesson 1. Kill the eyes, not the fist. The first battle was not firepower, it was sight. A battlefield is night, even at noon, if your sensors go blind. So Iran did not need to destroy every missile battery. That is amateur theater. It went for the eyes. Radar nodes, air defense sensors, regional warning systems, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates. One by one, the board started losing light. And here is the unpleasant little truth. A missile without guidance is not a shield. It is an invoice with fins. Destroy the radar, and the missile becomes a nervous, expensive object waiting for instructions that never arrive. Before the first aircraft falls, before the first base burns, before the first press conference lies with good lighting, the war begins with a screen going black. Lesson 2. Satellites became a marketplace. Once upon a time, satellites belonged to superpowers. Big machines, big budgets, big rooms full of people pretending the phrase classified assessment made them less wrong. Then the market arrived, and suddenly, battlefield visibility had a checkout page. Commercial imagery changed the game because it gave smaller actors something they were not supposed to have, situational awareness without owning the sky. That is why Washington moved to restrict imagery access. First delays, then broader restrictions, then sanctions against Chinese satellite firms. Not because satellites were new, because access was. The old world said only great powers can see. The new world says depends who pays the subscription. Somewhere, Clausewitz is looking at an API dashboard and wondering why war has a monthly plan. Lesson 3, allies are runways, not decorations. Power projection is a polite phrase. It means using someone else's geography to make your war possible. Bases, ports, airspace, fuel, maintenance, emergency landing options. Allies are not flags behind a podium, they are the runway. And runways can say no. Epic Fury reminded everyone that hosting American power is not free. When Iranian drones and missiles started targeting sites across the region, the message was not only for Washington, it was for every government nearby. Are you sure you want this war parked in your driveway? You do not have to defeat the empire, you make its friends nervous. And once the friends get nervous, the map starts changing without a single border moving. Airspace opens, airspace closes, routes get longer, tankers work harder, pilots wait, the Empire still has power, but now it has to ask permission to use the room. Lesson 4, the base problem. Aircraft need bases. Hundreds of aircraft need many bases. That sounds obvious until the missiles start flying. Then, every airfield becomes a question. Too close to Iran, and it becomes vulnerable. Too far from Iran, and every sortie becomes a logistics tax. Where do you park an empire when the parking lot is under fire? The United States had to pull aircraft away from exposed Gulf positions. Farther bases meant longer routes. Longer routes meant more tankers. More tankers meant more vulnerability. And now take that problem and drag it across the Pacific. The Pacific does not care about your doctrine. It is not a theater. It is a blue continent with bad intentions. If the base problem is hard in the Gulf, it becomes monstrous in the Pacific. Air power is not only what you can fly, it is where you can land. Lesson 5. Parked aircraft are targets with wings. Militaries keep rediscovering this lesson like a drunk man finding the same wall. Pearl Harbor knew it, Bodenplatte knew it, Camp Bastion knew it. Epic Fury just gave the lesson a new coat of paint. An aircraft parked on a runway is not air superiority, it is a very expensive hostage. Iran did not need to beat American aircraft in a clean sky duel. It needed to reach them before they became aircraft. Missiles, drones, sabotage, saturation, pick the flavor. The US had the concept for this, agile combat employment, move the aircraft, disperse, avoid the first punch, good concept. But concepts get tired. After one day, maybe it works. After 2 days, maybe. After a week, logistics starts asking rude questions. Where are the spare parts? Where's the fuel? Where are the crews sleeping? Who guards the runway? Ace can dodge the first slap. It does not magically erase geography. Lesson 6. Tankers are the glass handle of the sword. Nobody makes posters of tankers. Nobody puts an airborne gas station on a recruitment billboard and says, "There, kid, that is glory." But without tankers, modern air power shrinks. Fighters need fuel, bombers need fuel, everything that projects force needs the quiet flying gas station. Epic Fury made the tanker problem visible. tankers were among the most painful losses and damage points. And that matters because tankers are big, slow, visible, and essential. That is a bad combination. A tanker is not just an aircraft, it is range, it is persistence. It is the difference between striking the target and waving at it from too far away. If your sword depends on a glass handle, the enemy will stop attacking the blade. Every long-range air campaign has a soft belly, and it has wings. Lesson 7. Good missions do not fix bad campaigns. There were moments in Epic Fury where American tactical excellence showed up like it always does: fast reaction, local dominance, precision, recovery under pressure. The rescue of Du-44 became one of those moments, the kind that gets briefed, mythologized, and eventually handed to Hollywood with dramatic lighting and a suspiciously emotional soundtrack. And to be fair, the operation was impressive, but here is the cold part. A brilliant mission can save lives. It cannot save a bad campaign. Tactical excellence belongs to pilots, crews, captains, and rescue teams. Campaign success belongs to generals and politicians. Those are different rooms. Sometimes the people in the first room are excellent, and the people in the second room are improvising with a straight face. That is how you get heroic scenes inside strategic confusion. Lesson 8. Friendly fire is the tax of chaos. Coalition warfare sounds beautiful in diagrams. Shared systems, common objectives, integrated command, interoperability, nice words. Then the sky fills with missiles, drones, jamming, false tracks, exhausted crews, and people making decisions inside seconds. That is when the diagram starts sweating. Friendly fire is not new. It is as old as organized violence and bad communication. Epic Fury reminded everyone that Link 16 is not magic. A data link does not eliminate fear. A shared screen does not eliminate confusion. An allied aircraft does not always look friendly when the radar picture is dirty and everyone is tired. The lesson is not avoid friendly fire completely. That is bedtime doctrine. The lesson is build enough mass, redundancy, training, and humility to survive the fact that chaos always gets a vote. In war, the enemy votes, the weather votes, the software votes, and sometimes your own side pulls the wrong trigger. Cold, ugly, predictable, like most expensive disasters. Lesson 9. The defense math is broken. This is the lesson accountants understand faster than generals. You cannot keep firing million-dollar interceptors at cheap drones forever. Even if you win the interception, you may lose the math. That is the defensive asymmetry problem. Ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, cheap drones, loitering munitions, decoys. The attacker can send volume. The defender has to decide what deserves an expensive answer. Western militaries need cheaper defensive layers: lasers, electronic warfare, guns, drone interceptors, passive defense, shelters, decoys, redundancy. The expensive missile cannot be the answer to every cheap flying problem. Because if your enemy attacks with a garage and you defend with a treasury, the garage does not need to win tactically. It just needs to keep sending receipts. Lesson 10. Resilience beats elegance. Western militaries love elegance. Clean platforms, integrated systems, precise strikes, lean logistics, short campaigns, very beautiful, very fragile. Iran's answer was uglier. Dig, hide, disperse, harden, absorb, repair, wait. That is resilience, not cinematic, not elegant, not fun to animate. But it survives. If you cannot intercept everything, you reduce the damage. If you cannot protect every asset, you make sure no single loss ends the campaign. If you cannot win the first leak, you prepare for the fifth. That was Iran's calculation. Not, can we beat America aircraft for aircraft? No. The real question was, can we still function after 40 days? And if the answer is yes, then the war changes shape. The side with the best machines may win the strike. The side with the better calendar may survive the war. So what did Epic Fury prove? Not that America is weak, that would be lazy. Not that Iran is invincible, that would be stupid. It proves something colder. Modern war is no longer decided only by the most advanced aircraft, the sharpest missile, or the cleanest first strike. It is decided by sight, access, bases, tankers, allies, satellites, defensive map, and the ability to keep functioning after the first beautiful plan dies. Epic Fury was supposed to be a campaign. It became a stress test for American power, for regional alliances, for modern air warfare, for the fantasy that technology makes war predictable. It does not. Technology only makes the bill more creative. You know when a war begins. You do not know when it ends. And you definitely do not know what it becomes after the map gets a vote. That is the real lesson. The map is not background. The map is the character. And in Epic Fury, the map looked at everyone. Washington, Tehran, the allies, the bases, the tankers, the satellites, and said, nice plan. Now survive the calendar. This was World on Edge. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and fly safe, Space Cowboy. The next war is already rehearsing. The band just has not started playing loud yet.